Hi, and welcome to this two-part series on anger. I am really happy to be sharing this with you. Whether you are someone who it's your go-to emotion or you are someone who rarely accesses this emotion, this video is for you today. And so today I'm going to be sharing with you why we need anger, why it shows up in our experience, the power behind it, and why you actually need to feel it and not suppress it. And then in part two, which will be coming shortly, I'll be sharing some 4 super effective tools to help you transmute your anger into something really powerful. So I am so happy to be sharing this with you. It's such a needed conversation, I feel. So I will see you in just a moment. Okay, so part one today is really the power of anger and maybe the message of anger. So just take a moment, as always, to tune into yourself. Make this relevant for you. Is anger a place that you hang out all the time and it gets you in trouble, maybe? Or is anger a place where you rarely go to? You feel like you don't even have access to it, or you feel bad about having the emotion of anger, or maybe you're somewhere in between. So just tune into where you are on this spectrum of anger. And I would just invite you to be open to this idea that we actually need anger. And then there's also really good ways to express anger, which I'll be sharing more in part two, but I'll talk a little bit about that today as well. But really, why do we need anger? So it is one of our human emotions, and so we need it, right? That's part of who we are. We have a myriad of emotions. Some of them feel really fantastic. Some of them are really accepted and acceptable in society, and then other ones are not as accepted by us or by society. But it doesn't mean we're not meant to have these emotions, right? These emotions are all a part of who we are. We are meant to have the full spectrum, and there's actually gifts in the full spectrum. And so we really want to allow anger to be a part of our human experience. So that's first of all. And it's often addressing or giving us some important information in the moment when we feel this anger coming up that we may choose to address. And again, I'll speak to that a little bit. So, we are often not encouraged to feel anger and let alone express it in the world. And I'm going to say, especially for women, but the same can be true for men. I never want to be exclusive in this way. It's just that we have in lots of ways, women have been discouraged from expressing anger or labeled a certain way for having anger. And so a lot of women have shut that part of themselves down. And then there's also a part of us where we actually can go into more. Of a disempowered feeling around something, or maybe it will be easier for us to go into sadness than to actually go into anger. And so really just want to bring anger to the table and the energy of anger to this session today. So, first of all, I really want you to give yourself permission to feel it when it comes up. So, it's going to come up, right? And if it's not coming up ever, probably you have suppressed it in some way, or you are not allowing your truth to really be fully witnessed within yourself, because there's going to be reasons anger comes up for us, and whether it's at other people or other circumstances or stuff going on within yourself, right? There's lots of reasons anger can come up. So you may not have a lot of anger towards others, but there may be some anger at your current life situation or what's going on in your world. Maybe there's even anger at yourself, right? And so just give yourself permission to feel it when it comes up and acknowledge it. Again, acknowledge that it's okay that you feel this, right? As soon as we resist stuff or we push it away or we pretend it's not there, we'll talk about this, but it's not going anywhere, right? It's actually just not being felt and expressed. And so you can, in the moment when it comes up, take a moment to sort of unpack it. And I will talk a little bit more about this in a moment. Maybe just tune into yourself. I'm angry right now. What am I angry about? What about this situation or this person is angering me? Is this something I need to address right now? Or would going for a run or doing something else help me move this energy? Which, again, I'm going to talk about the energy of anger as well. But you can give yourself just a few minutes to be like, I feel really angry right now. I'm not sure. Maybe I'm not sure why. I wonder why I'm so angry. What is it about this situation, this experience that is having me feel the energy of emotion, or sorry, the energy of anger within me? And I will just say that all emotions are energy, and energy always wants to move and not stay stuck. And so that's why I suggested going for a run or something that helps you move the energy. And in part two, I'm going to be sharing 4 really effective tools to help you do that. But just really understanding now from a sort of a mental construct that really energy, emotions are energy, and energy doesn't want to stay stuck in a certain emotion, right? It actually wants to be moved, it wants to be processed, and all of that. Yeah, and I also just want to share that anger often gets a bad rap because of the nature of it. It often causes a reaction, right? A reactive response, right? We kind of act in the moment, and so often there isn't a moment of reflection or regrouping within ourselves before we actually respond, right? And so you'll often hear just the whole idea of learning how to respond versus react. And I won't go into the react from ego and respond from spirit in this video, but I will talk about that another time. So really just taking a moment to understand that we actually need anger, right? It does give us vital, important information in the moment that can be really helpful for us. It's important for us to feel and express it. And again, we'll talk more about that in a moment. And again, expressing it doesn't always mean blurting it out and lashing out at someone else, right? It actually doesn't mean that at all. So I do want to tap though into why it does show up, right? So anger, again, there's a reason that it's showing up and it's giving us this information. And I'm going to give it this overview, and I want you just to feel into it for yourself. It is often, almost always related to some sort of boundary being crossed within you. And so, however you define the word boundary, but something that is feels not okay with you, right? And so, often it can be something. I'm going to just give you some examples, right? So it might be something like you feel like you're not being heard in a conversation, or you're not being seen in the way that you'd like to be seen. It can often be to do with an expectation that's not being met, right, by maybe yourself, maybe other people in your life. It is very often related to feeling diminished in some way. And so, whether that is you taking that on and diminishing yourself, or someone else in some way making you feel diminished. And often it will have something to do with something in our lives that is probably needs to shift for you, because how it is currently feeling for you is maybe frustrating, or it feels unfair, right? And so again, it's showing up to show you something that needs to be addressed or shifted. And again, I'm going to give you some different ways to do that, but just understanding that there is a purpose. And I'm going to talk about, there's actually a lot of power behind energy as well, behind anger as well. But really just understanding for yourself that, oh, I'm angry right now. It's showing up because something is, one of those examples I gave, or maybe something else for you, but some sort of boundary is being crossed that, yeah, maybe it's a boundary you need to tweak for yourself, right? Maybe or it's an expectation that isn't aligned, right? Maybe it's something you need to sort of shift within yourself, or maybe it's others that are crossing boundaries or doing things or not meeting expectations. And then those would need to be addressed, right? And so We'll talk about the address part in just a moment. So now I just want to talk a little bit about the power behind anger. And so if you just tune into the energy or the around the emotion of anger, you can feel that there's a little bit of a vibe to it. There's a little bit of energy in it. There's a bit of momentum. There's some connection actually to our life force, right? It's not a sort of a slumping energy. It's kind of like it's giving you a little bit of juice, right? And so that's actually a good thing. For those of you who know the Abraham Hicks vibrational scale or energetic emotional scale, if you have had that experience, I'm going to speak to it, but if you haven't, you'll still understand this. So anger is actually up the scale, a higher vibration than something like feeling disempowered or feeling helpless or feeling depressed. Right. So that is, if you tune into that, even if you don't know the scale, if you just tune into that for yourself, if you feel the energy of feeling sort of helpless in your current situation, or feeling disempowered or feeling diminished, right? All of these things are just, if you would notice the energy around this, there's not a lot of energy to it. It's very deflated, right? It's a very low energy, deflated kind of energy. Feels like we don't have choices, right? And so if you tune into that and then tune into the energy of anger, like something needs to change. I'm not happy with this. I'm committing to this, right? If you feel into this energy, you will feel that it's a higher vibrational frequency and there's actually more energy sort of circulating with which you can, which is actually more powerful, right? With which you can act, right? And so I'm just going to share this story just because this, I think it will speak to it in some way, perhaps. Years ago when I was teaching, when I was doing a retreat, we were raising some money for a women's shelter. And um, the sort of head or the leader of the women's shelter came in to speak to the group of women and us as well. And was just sharing, the gratitude for this and the experience of the women there. And she was just saying, I love it when the women get angry, um, because there is an impetus for change, right? And so it was such an interesting thing. It was the first part of the retreat that she was like the first kind of speaker to introduce. And then, as I was teaching throughout the weekend around sort of energetic frequency, vibrational scale, we could really see how them coming in originally feeling very disempowered, right? Is a lower level of frequency. And then when they got to the place where they were like, oh, it's not okay that I'm being treated this way. I want to shift something. I want to create something new for myself and my family, right? There is an elevated energy to that. And so I just wanted to use that as an example, because I think you could probably feel that. And so really, again, just understanding that this energy, there's power behind it, and it's calling you to something that probably needs attention, probably needs to be addressed, which will ultimately positively impact your life, right? So when this anger comes up from within us, again, it's calling us to address something and make shifts that will elevate our life experience. And so, really, now I want to talk about why you need to feel it and not suppress it. And so, I'm saying the word again a lot today, but we don't want to be lashing out our anger. We actually want to learn how to work with the anger energy, which I will share much more about in part two of this. But just understanding that what I'm sharing, when I say we need to feel it, that's one thing. And when I even say we need to express it, it is not going to be in a way that is going to cause detriment to your life or to other people, right? So just really want to sort of clarify that. And so I will say sometimes the energy of anger will just kind of come up and it will sort of dissipate on its own. And you'll know that, right? It's like if you can't tap back into the feeling or the energy of anger, then you've probably released that, right? You've probably dissipated it. But if you recall the situation, if you recall the event, and anger is still there, it really means it still needs to be processed. So very often it does require us to feel it and process it in some way. And so when I'm speaking about processing, first of all, it doesn't have to take long. So we don't want to hang out in, I was saying it's an energy that's up the vibrational scale, but it's still not way up the vibrational scale, right? It's above disempowerment and feeling helpless, but it's certainly not the level where we want to kind of hang out. But it does serve its purpose. But we do want to move through this energy, and we can do it in as quick as 90 seconds, right? And so some of the tools that I'm going to share in the next video, you can literally do in 90 seconds. So just so that you know that. But even if it's not 90 seconds, it really is just that we need to move this energy. And so it's because it's not going to go anywhere until it's processed. What's going to happen is it's going to stay nicely packed away in your body somewhere. And it's going to be in your neck as tightness. It's going to hang out in your liver. It's going to be in your cells and your energy. Even if you put a nice bow on top of it saying, oh, I'm fine, I'm over it, right? It's not there. If it actually is there, it's living within you. And then what's going to happen is at some point later on, it's going to show up for you as either a random outburst that doesn't serve you. It might turn into some body pain and even ultimately illness. And it's going to, because it's hanging out in you, it's actually going to be the energetic frequency or the energetic stance from which you're vibrating, right? So it's actually the energy. You might be yeah, I feel great and all things are good. But then you have this anger energy, and that's actually the energy that you are radiating out, which is ultimately going to call in more of the same, right? And so we do really want to move it. And what I see so much, so for some of you, you may have easy access to your anger. It may come up for you and you may be able to process it well, or you may have a hard time with it and it may be like outbursty. But for the most part, most of the people I see in my experience don't access anger. And what they do then is kind of it becomes suppressed and it turns more into um, almost ultimately a little bit of anger at themselves. And it turns into this feeling of being disempowered or being sad, which, as I said, is actually lower on the scale. But it's a place where people are often more comfortable, right? Because anger feels very outward focused. And a lot of times people will want to internalize things because, again, it's not necessarily appropriate, I'm going to say, to express anger. So they will take it within themselves, but then not want to feel it because it feels like I shouldn't feel angry. I should be above this or whatever, or I don't want to feel this. But what happens again is that it stays there and it will either show up at some point as a big reaction, or in the meantime, it will often show up as something like sadness or, yeah, again, a sense of disempowerment or or feeling like I don't have choice. So that's actually a worse place to hang out, right? So we really do want to have that anger kind of come and move through us. So it's so important that we actually acknowledge that it's there. So I'm just going to spend a moment speaking about that just for a moment, because it really is most of what I see with people is that they don't want to even go there to anger, or they feel like they can uh, move through it really quickly. And I do want to say that when we go into anger or we process anger, it doesn't mean we have to dissect it. It doesn't mean we have to analyze what's going on, although sometimes that will be necessary and it's worth doing, right? If why is this making me angry, or allowing myself to feel angry around this? What is it about this that is making me feel angry? Oh, this person is crossing a boundary with me. This person is this doesn't feel like an even and equal exchange, whatever it is. It's important for you to yeah, let it move through you so you can actually feel why you are upset, why you are angry. And so sometimes it is worth taking a moment to journal around it, to spend a bit of time to yeah, receive some coaching or something around this if it's a long-standing pattern. Or also understanding that processing energy can be done so quickly. And often it's going to be physical. Something physical is actually going to be the most efficient thing. Again, I'm going to be showing you this in the next part, some very cool examples of ways you can shift this energy. But for now, just the idea, if anger is coming up within you and you can feel it, you can feel the energy of anger, some kind of exercise, going for a run, making some sound is actually really powerful, because a lot of times our anger comes from not expressing ourselves, kind of, almost like having a, what do you call that? Gag over the, what do you call that anyway? Gag over the mouth, right? There's things you want to say, but you're not actually saying them because you're not supposed to. You don't want to upset anybody. You don't want people to think badly about you. It's not received well, or it hasn't been received well in the past. And so you sort of suppress that and sort of keep it in. And so sound is actually a really great way to release some of the anger energy. So really just wanted to take this time right now to highlight really the power of anger, the messages that anger have, the allowance that it is important to have it in your experience, because there's really some gifts underneath that. And I am going to be sharing with you next week 4 powerful tools to help you in transmuting this anger into something powerful and meaningful. And so it's about taking the energy and acknowledging it and feeling it, but also letting it move through you so it's not hanging out in your system. If you're super keen to dive into something right now, I'm going to give you a couple of ideas, or I'll put the links, or the pop-up will give you some videos you can take a look at. The first one is saying hello to heavy emotions and energy and watching them shift like magic. And so you can I guide you through this whole process, and you can use the energy of anger in this. This one's not super physical, I will say, but it is energetic. So it's very efficient and effective, and just really helpful for you to be acknowledging that you have anger, right? So you'll be like, hello, anger. I see you. Hello, anger. I feel you, right? But however, just allowing that to be a part of your experience. There's another really good, I can't remember the title right now, but I will put it here. It's a quantum flow. It's a physical embodiment practice, really around manifestation, but it has some practice around actually releasing energy. And so that can also be a very good one to move the energy of anger. So I will have those pop up or link below so you can take a look for them. And as mentioned, the next video coming up, I am going to give you 4 really awesome tools that you can apply. But I do hope for now that what you will take away from this video is that anger is not wrong. You're not an awful person for feeling anger. It does need to be felt, processed, moved through you. And often there is a message for you around something that needs to be addressed or that is asking for your attention. So really, as always, being compassionate, kind, allowing all parts of you to exist and to not be made wrong. And really understanding that often when we go into these, what we might call shadow parts of ourselves, and allow them to actually be present within us, the more we can open up to the light and the gifts within ourselves. And so really it is this beautiful process, and we are human, and this is our journey, and all of these emotions kind of create the ebb and the flow that allow us to create powerful experiences and opportunities and things in our life experience. So glad to have you here today. If you have not yet subscribed, love to have you subscribe, and you can put I think the little bell so you know when the next video comes up. And I hope that you will have an amazing week honoring all pieces of you. And we'll see you in a couple of weeks for the next video around energy tools for anger. Take care.